Hey everyone, welcome to the voboss podcast and the Real Bosses series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I'm here with my special guest co-host, Tom Dheere. Tom, I'm so excited to have you back.
Yes, thank you so much for having me again. This has been so much fun.
So, Tom, there's been some news in the industry, and I think all bosses should always be following up and be current on news that's happening in the industry because it directly affects our businesses. Mm-hmm. And so there has been a groundbreaking agreement between SAG-AFTRA and Replica Studios, which is an AI company. And I think we should talk about this and how it affects us and how it affects our businesses.
I agree. So now, just to get disclaimers, one, I am a SAG-eligible member. I am non-union, so I am not a member of SAG-AFTRA. So I was going to say I don't have a horse in the race, but all voice actors, regardless of union status, has a horse in the race of what's going on in both the union ecosystem and the non-union ecosystem, because they all have a major effect and influence on each other.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of overlap.
Absolutely.
I am a member of NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors. So
myself included.
Yay! And we know that NAVA, including providing health insurance and education of the industry, is also a major advocate of making sure that voice actors are both safe from predatory AI practices, but also are empowered to embrace AI to move our voiceover business forward if we feel that it aligns with our value system and our business model.
Absolutely. And Tom, I know you and I both we have taken time to educate ourselves within the AI industry and about synthetic voices. And I think we are, hoping to encourage others to do the same so that they can make smart, educated decisions. And this is going to be part of that very important discussion. So absolutely, myself, I am non-union. However, things that happen in our industry, this can be setting a precedent for how AI companies work with voice actors, as well as how consumers view AI and synthetic voices. And I think one thing I remember Tim Friedlander mentioning in one of his discussions was that if nothing else, it's really started to bring awareness to not just our community, but everyone out there of what sort of impact synthetic voices and AI can have on our industry, on our voices, and our rights, our intellectual rights, our intellectual property. So talk about what you know of the agreement.
Okay. So the first thing I'll say in regards to that is about late 2021, I took a meeting with Replica Studios to talk about their voice cloning process. And I'm pretty sure you've talked to them too, right?
Yes, I actually interviewed them on the voboss podcast. So bosses, make sure you listen to that one.
Exactly. So what different AI production companies have different business models. They have different reasons for entering the industry and how they go about their business. What Replica Studios does is they work, at least right now, in the video game bubble, which is they work with voice actors to create very specific performances. So, I think I auditioned for the part of the crazy old West, speculator. There's gold in them now hills. I did one of, I submitted to be considered for one of those. So, and if you do get that, you get paid, and that performance can only be used for that performance, both on a technological level, because they can't turn your crazy mining prospector into an astronaut voice or another voice.
Is that because that's established with the company? Are you talking about all companies?
I'm talking about Replica.
Okay, Replica. Okay, so Replica has an agreement in place where if you create a voice with them and it is used for a video game, it can only be used for that particular video game in that particular instance. Now, and they cannot make additional dialogue or additional games from that voice. Or
it is my understanding. Also, I watched the Nava's wonderful but 2-hour long question and answer thing. So so forgive me if I misquote.
No, everyone should be watching that
absolutely.
as well.
It's on YouTube.
Yes.
Go to the Nava website, and there's a link, and you should definitely watch it. It was fascinating because you learn not only about AI, you learn a lot about how SAG-AFTRA works, because Zeke talked in severe detail, wonderful severe detail, about how bargaining works and contracts work and agreement works and
Absolutely.
all of that. But historically, Replica would use your voice as a placeholder during production of the video game, as opposed to using your voice to be cast in the video game.
Yes,
Smaller
when I interviewed
roles,
them, that was their process, and you were paid, you were compensated on a character, not a character, video game character, but a character. How many characters were used? You get paid on a character basis.
And that one
in a
character
monthly contract.
And that one character could be used as a placeholder in production in multiple video game production companies making multiple video games. And smaller roles could also be used by that, and you would get compensated for that. So this agreement, SAG-AFTRA agreement with Replica, basically just sets up the relationship, how SAG-AFTRA members can work for Replica Studios, and they have set up a studio per hour rate, of the actual performance. And then they have set up, the usage or licensing of what happens when your voice is used and how long it's used for and what the compensation is. I think it was per 300 lines or something like that. And then there's incremental payment. Zeke made some very, very interesting points. One thing that a lot of people have been saying is, like, why isn't SAG-AFTRA fighting AI? Why aren't they trying to ban AI? And he said that, again, to paraphrase, he said they had a choice. They could either try to prohibit AI, or they could try to regulate AI.
Absolutely.
And he and Tim agreed that they are 5 to 10 years too late for prohibition of AI, even if they wanted to prohibit it. So as a result, their only recourse is to get involved with regulation of AI.
I think we should reiterate that, Tom, yes, rather than prohibition of AI, which, look, technology happens with or without us, right? And so prohibition of AI could have been really difficult, really, really difficult to enforce, and probably would have, I think, destroyed the industry, to be honest with you.
That's exactly what he said.
And so, therefore, again, we don't have a choice as members of the industry. We don't really have a choice. I mean, we either fight back and quit, or we evolve and we work with it. And I think that it's admirable of a company, because right now I want to talk to you about there are no companies. There's no regulation for companies right now. And it's interesting because I just interviewed Oz Krakowski from Deep Dub AI, another AI company that does dubbing and localization of voices, who are also very much in the fair, transparency, compensation to the voice actor. And I think that there's something to be said for companies that say, right, that they are fair and transparent and compensatory. Is that a word?
Compensatory.
Compensatory, thank you, for voice actors in the industry. But it's also another thing, because there's no other regulation. They say it on their website, they say it in their policies, but there's nobody enforcing it. So I think for Replica to come forward to SAG-AFTRA and make themselves accountable, at least to an organization that directly deals with our industry in such an impactful way, I think that was great. Now, the nitty-gritty of the contract, I've not been privy to see that. However, what makes me a little bit nervous is that, first of all, we're voice actors. We know voice acting. Replica is an AI company. They know AI. And so I know from working in technology for 20 billion years that there's a lot of misunderstanding. People that don't understand the technology can be talked into things, possibly. They can be coerced into agreeing to things that may or may not serve them in a positive light. However, at some point, you've just got to put faith in a company that they're going to be ethical and transparent. And I think this was a good move. And I guess possibly there's loopholes in the contract, but I do believe we're working towards something that's positive in the industry.
Here's one thing I've been talking to a lot of people about is that, well, for one thing, to your point, is that there is no federal legislation to hold AI companies accountable for artists' IP right now. And Nava has been working with Capitol Hill, and there are multiple bills in the works. If you go to the Nava website, it has links to show you the legislation that they are working on.
Absolutely.
Which is great. There are a lot of people I've been hearing in the voiceover industry saying all AI companies are by definition unethical. These, I think, are also a lot of the same people that have been saying for 20 years that all pay-to-play sites, by definition, are unethical. Both of those statements are
true.
Neither of those are true. They're patently false.
Yeah.
No matter where you go in any industry, in any sector of any business all over the world, a certain percentage of the people involved are going to be unethical. Immoral,
bad actors,
bad actors, scumbags.
Yep.
Every industry, the voiceover industry is no different. So that means a certain percentage of people who are voice seekers on pay-to-play sites are going to be predatory and will try to rip you off.
Yeah.
And a certain percentage of voice actors on pay-to-play sites will undercut, which damages the industry. There's the same thing with AI. There's no difference. It's just that people are going to be how they're going to be. So all you can do is bring your value system with you.
It's like a bad client,
Yeah, and we all have bad clients.
And it's something that I'm always, we're always talking about, right? It's one of the reasons why I have my Voice and AI series with, over like 35 interviews with AI companies, is to educate yourself. And that was really the basis for myself, educating myself about the industry, is just talking. And one thing I think that is so important is that we have a dialogue with these AI companies. We make it known. And I think Nava is just doing wonderful work in helping that to happen, and for really, fighting for voice actors on behalf of the organization. And I think that all of us just need to educate ourselves on what is happening. And just like a bad client, like I educate myself on a client, there are telltale signs when I can get a feeling about a client if they're going to be a bad client or going to be difficult to work with. And I think AI companies are no different. And I think first and foremost, companies that are out in the forefront of the industry today, and there's a lot of AI companies, there are a lot of little tiny ones that have popped up and not worked, and then not survived. But the ones that are there in the forefront, the larger companies, I think that they are responsible for providing an ethical ground, because I don't think that consumers, first of all, will stand for companies that are not ethical in their treatment of humans, because it becomes like this whole thing. I mean, again, we're also a product of or a slave to the industry in which we work, right? So if consumers are wanting synthetic voices, or if synthetic voices will provide a space in the market, will provide something of value to a market. And Oz said to me the other day, he said, well, normally there would be all of this content that wouldn't be dubbed, that wouldn't be created, because it's simply the process of doing so takes such a long time. And it's kind of like the audiobook genre and the audiobook, companies, AI companies that were trying to make audiobooks with synthetic voices. And so there is a lot of content out there that won't get produced simply because it is a process to do with a voice actor. Not that a voice actor isn't, desired or better. However, there's some content that it may not be as necessary to have a human voice.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure we've had these conversations before in various circles, that there is some content like a product manual that would never get narrated by a human because of, there's just so many of them and it's not cost effective, but an AI can do that. Our good friend Karin, vice president of Nava, uses the example of no human can narrate the New York Times overnight.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Those who are visually impaired have just as much of a right to enjoy the New York Times with their morning cup of coffee than any other sighted person.
Absolutely.
And AI can help provide that service.
Absolutely.
It's where you get into other areas where people think, and there are people who, because I've had conversations with people who say, nope, that's still not art. That's still taking jobs from people. That is still unethical. I don't know how much. There's a certain percentage of the population that there's just going to be no talking to.
Yeah.
So it's like,
There'll be
okay,
no convincing.
There's going to be no convincing. And if that's their value system and they think AI is an affront to art and an attack on art, and with some of the bad actors and predatory companies, yes, it absolutely is. But this conversation, Anne, it's not really about art. It's
Yeah.
about technology.
Yeah.
And technology always wins. It always wins. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean, well, we should all surrender and sell out and clone our voices and get paid a nickel, 5 cents on the dollar and just, and eat dog food and live in a hovel because, we can't thrive as artists in the voiceover industry and get paid rates that are commensurate with the industry standard. But there are ways to navigate the industry, whether you are pro-AI, anti-AI, or can't be bothered with AI, and have the potential to still be able to thrive as a voice actor. And this agreement with SAG-AFTRA and Replica is a major step in that direction. Because as you also know, the rate structure for compensation for AI, whether it's to have your voice cloned or some other service where they're going to synthesize your voice just for their website or just for this bit of software, much less getting it put on a website where anybody can subscribe and use it. It's still the Wild West. Now with SAG-AFTRA, they are providing, thank goodness, the beginning of some sort of rate structure that we can all start to work with and find out if it's a viable one.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because that is still, we talk about the Wild West and rates have always been a Wild West, right? Especially for non-union. And so what's really wonderful is that, yes, if SAG-AFTRA is getting involved, and of course, I've been telling the GVAA to get on with AI rate structures because, again, what is, how much do you charge or how much should you get paid? And of course, now you're actually doing like a royalty share, really, with a company that produces that voice because you cannot produce your own AI voice.
No, it's impossible.
Literally, you have to lease an engine to do that or work with a company for them to produce it. And then ultimately, they're the ones, if you have, let's say if they have an interface that allows you to go in there and do a text-to-speech or a speech-to-speech, generation of those files, you're still leasing that engine that does that.
Right.
And that is something that you do not have control over. I mean, that is not your studio. And so in reality, you have to pay for the rights for that studio to produce that audio.
Right.
And so that's what I think about it. And I think about it as being, it's more than just a studio to produce that synthetic voice or those audio files. It is the studio, and it is also pretty much kind of the voice actor in a way using it's like a percentage of you that is being used. And so we can't possibly get paid, what we're probably used to because we were used to controlling that ourselves. And it can only help the more people that get involved in this discussion, because I will tell you that a couple of years ago when I started interviewing companies and we started talking about rates, there was no rate set. There was no, and in fact, nobody really wanted to even comment on a rate. There were some people that flung out, 10%, voice actors would get 10%. And voice actors heard that and got completely insulted, not understanding the technology. Now, I say, well, who says 10%? Why not ask for 50%, right? It's my voice, and their engine. So why not start at 50%? It seems reasonable to me. And, again, any good negotiator, right? If you're going to work with a company and you're going to have an agreement on a rate structure or a fee schedule, you can always negotiate. And so if SAG-AFTRA is working with rates, and we've got other companies that are setting the rates, this is the thing. When the companies set the rates, it's kind of like who says their budget who says the number first, right? They win. Right? Or, you know what I mean? If I ask, what's your budget, right? That's the proper way to negotiate, right? You don't say the number first. Excuse me. You don't say that. But if you set it, right? I feel like we have some footage. We have some ground to discuss and talk about what would be a fair compensation. Because again, we want our voices to be valued. And again, this whole agreement with at least Replica saying we're willing to step up to the plate and we're willing to be held accountable by an organization, right, for fairness, transparency, and compensation for actors to get paid what they're, for their value.
Yeah.
But what is that value? That's the question, in terms of a synthetic voice.
Right. Voice actors are in the business of licensing our art. That is what we've always done. That's always what we've done.
Yeah.
We're the artist in the booth.
Yeah.
Which is our session fee. And then if it's a broadcast, commercial, union, or non-union, then we license that performance, which is the usage fee. There is zero difference between that and what the SAG-AFTRA Replica agreement is. They will get paid a certain amount for being in the booth, and then they will get paid for the use of that. So union or non-union, you are in the business of licensing your art. This is just more of a codification of it in relation to the, I don't know if you'd call it AI a genre, or I don't know pay to place isn't a genre either. It's a portal, I guess, because I've always said there are 3 portals in the voiceover industry for casting opportunities: representation, online casting, and self-marketing. Maybe this is the 4th one.
Yeah, maybe.
AI. Maybe it's like a 3.5 one. But we want to license our art. Look, unless you don't, and if you don't, then you work for the Seeing Eye here in not here in New Jersey, but across the water in New Jersey, or you work for or you do stuff for Learning Ally, and you narrate stuff pro bono, which there is a place for that, and there's lots of that's art too. It's just you're not licensing your art. You're donating your artistic ability to do that.
And when you do that, by the way, I mean, and again, it's kind of scary because we've really, anytime like our podcast, like this podcast here, or anytime I put my voice out there, out on the internet right now, there's no regulation of it. And so theoretically, bad actors, companies that are not ethical could be taking that and making voices, which they probably have. I would assume
I guarantee it.
I guarantee that if you're known in the industry at all, you've got your voice out there, that your voice, and we've seen that also where there have been some companies, unethical companies, that have been producing voices or taking, scrubbing the internet for voices, and that is something that is unfortunate. However, it's something, again, until there are regulations, laws in place that, I mean, gosh, how many times do we talk about it? Like with our phone, have they been listening? Have they been recording? Absolutely. So that data is theirs. They can use that to develop anything. But at least now I think that, I think, we're kind of backpedaling, but we now need to at least make our voices heard. And the more organizations that can help us to do that, right? SAG-AFTRA with this agreement with Replica, NAVA helping, us talking on the podcasts about it, and you and I being open and transparent and saying, hey, I have a synthetic voice. I have a synthetic voice partially because I was educating myself on how voices got created, what companies I would want to be working with, and really, until I take those risks, I don't know, and I'm not educated.
Right, and being a voice actor is a risk in itself, just because it's such an unpredictable, chaotic, no guarantee of any income ever kind of industry, and also I've been doing online auditioning since 2006.
Right.
So I guarantee
Me too.
I've had multiple auditions stolen, and I'm sure my voice has been cloned in some capacity many, many times. just like every website you've ever been to or ever will go to has been or will be hacked. NRI Social Security numbers are all over the place. And it's terrible. And there's really not much we can do about that retroactively. Moving forward, we do everything we can to protect our intellectual property and engage in safe practices. So auditioning for some text-to-speech thing on a pay-to-play site, I think is a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. Scheduling a meeting with a AI production company and asking questions about how do you operate? What is your compensation structure? What's your licensing structure? Can I see an example of your agreement so I can take a look at it or send it to an attorney to review it? Even if you don't want to clone your voice, I strongly recommend doing that so you can just have an understanding of what the industry is, because this is going to be more and more a part of the industry. And there will eventually come a point where there will be legitimate ethical casting notices on pay-to-play sites in regards to AI, which Nava has done a great job with Voice 123, for example, to help curb that tidal wave of felonious casting notices that was proliferating the Voice 123 site until they had a conversation and said, if clients want to post a text-to-speech casting notice, they have to answer these questions and be able to answer them. And then all those casting notices vanished literally overnight. So that tells you something.
It does.
So the the bosses out there need to know how to protect themselves while at the same time understanding that this isn't going anywhere, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. AI is a disruptive force, just like the light bulb disrupted the candle maker industry. And who gave a darn about the candle making industry except for the candle makers?
Yeah, very true.
You know what I mean? This is a part of the industry. You got to learn to embrace, adapt, evolve, and grow, or you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely. And you need to educate yourself about how the industry is evolving. And again, you will be left behind if you are not educating yourself. So bosses, go out there, listen to, sign up for Nava. I cannot recommend that. Anymore. Nava is just doing wonderful things. Listen to the voboss the AI series, Voice and AI series. Listen to Tom and I talk about it. We have a couple of episodes we've already talked about it on the voboss episode. And really just read everything that you can, familiarize yourself with everything that you can so that we can move forward and have successful businesses along with this disruptive technology. Because if it's not AI, it's going to be another disruptive technology. And I'd like to challenge any boss out there and ask them if they are not using some form of AI to help their business right now and being hypocritical and saying, well, you can't use my voice, but yet they might be using ChatGPT to do something to make their business run more efficiently. So there are multiple AI opportunities out there that you can utilize that I think are wonderful to help your business run more effectively. And Tom and I just may do an episode on those.
That's not a bad idea.
So... all right, guys. Well, Tom, this has been an amazing discussion. I'm sure we could talk about this forever, but thank you so much for joining me again. And bosses, I implore you, if you want to take a moment and imagine a world full of passionate, empowered, diverse individuals giving collectively and intentionally, you too can help to create a world that you would like to see and make a difference. Visit 100voiceswhocare.org to learn more. Big shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL. You too can network and connect like a boss. Find out more at IPDTL. Find out more at IPDTL.italkforaliving.com. Have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right.